Good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Repulsive TV. This is the 4th episode. I've decided after reviewing some of the like the 2nd and 3rd episode that I think a half hour is a little bit too long, so we're going to split it up into 2. This first episode is part 1 of 2. We're going to discuss some vinyl and influences, band influences on us. I'm joined tonight with Jason.
Yeah, Jason
Abby.
Thedick. Yeah. Is that when I was supposed to chime in? My first time on the mic.
So.
Sorry, we've never used
And then
mics.
sitting in the peanut gallery, we got Tom and Danny.
Hello.
And we're going to discuss records tonight. We also got Dax wandering around, popping in and out like the Phantom of the Park, like Devereaux. So anyways, tonight, this first half, we're just going to discuss records and stuff that we find influential and stuff. And last episode, I talked about how the most commonly associated band that is an influence of ours was the Misfits, and still is a big influence on us. And sometimes over time, you have certain records that you're obsessed with at a certain point in your life that just always ends up becoming like a sort of a reference point, that whenever you hear that song or something from that era, that it becomes a big influence at the time. So for us right now, or for the time frame of when this band was kicking off, and about the time that we're going to talk about with Jason in a minute when he joined, one of the biggest acts that we were really, really into at the time was AFI. So yeah, I'm going to do the same thing you did.
Did it look obvious when I looked away? When you say we, you mean...
Yes, okay. When I say we, it
but
was
me.
not... Yeah, Jason was not a fan. And it was hard to get... But ironically enough, the one time we did cover an AFI song, he had to do the... What's up, Kev?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's okay,
no,
man.
dude.
I like having a little
Come on
activity
in.
behind us. It's cool. That's my neighbor, Kevin.
Kevin.
Hi, I'm just causing trouble.
He's just
No,
causing
you're
trouble.
not.
He's a troublemaker. So AFI was a huge influence on us at the time, especially the album The Art of Drowning, especially. I don't have any of the individual records, but I do have this badass... Well, I do have a few individual records, but from the Nitro Records era, this just will look like a black square on screen, so maybe I'll have to... You won't see the
Tilted
beautiful...
at an angle.
Trust me, there's like a little logo. It's got the Alan Forbes devil bat on there, but it's got... it's a box set vinyl of all the Nitro Records era. Now, I was a huge AFI fan of a very specific era of AFI, and it was all centered around this time. The first thing I heard by them was the All Hallows EP, which was like mind-blowing. Hunter's bass playing on that. Hunter probably became my biggest influence on bass as far as stylistic playing, that I always wanted to try to be like him, but I never, could never really achieve it. But the bass tone on the the All Hallows EP, and I think it's just like a perfect EP. That song Total Immortal was played out. I played that every 5 seconds. I loved that EP. And from discovering them and seeing that something like what we were doing, like a horror punk idea, could really be a bona fide, not just like some cheesy sort of kitschy type thing. Like, they really brought a lot of lyrical gravitas to it, and his lyrics were very intelligent. It wasn't, the typical just sing about a horror movie or, some slashers coming to get me. Not to knock that style, but that wasn't something that I was really super interested in. I like more introspective lyrics, and I like to have lyrical content is important to me in a band that I like. And so I think Davey Havok really brought a lot of like art to the idea of horror punk. So right after that came out, I started buying whatever else was out, and at the time, Black Sails was out, that was a huge like influence as well. But then right after that came out The Art of Drowning, which was like the number one AFI album for me. That one I listened to nonstop. I was a bartender at the time, and I worked on a restaurant at the top of a hill and would just sit there at the end of work looking over the valley of San Bernardino at the smog and the lights and the ghetto bird and just like listen to that album. I would listen to the song Morning Star and just, man, I loved it. I love everything about that album. And interestingly enough, talking about that album in particular, we're in the process of writing new stuff. We had this one song that we wrote the music to. I hadn't finished lyrics, and I just finished the lyrics the other day, and was listening to it, and I was like, man, it's obvious like AFI and influenced song, not necessarily intentionally, but it really sounds very AFI-ish. And so I was listening to it, and we were driving around. Elodie and I were driving around, and there's a part. That when I play it, you guys will know what I'm talking about, or when you guys in TV land out there, computer land hear it, you'll know what I'm saying. But it always sounded really like an AFI bite, and it wasn't intentional, but we drove around and both of us were like, man, this really does sound like not just that it is flavored like AFI, but it really sounds like something from an AFI song. So we listened to like every AFI song possible because we kind of could tell it was
no
there.
Artificial AFI flavoring.
No, it was true
Sorry,
AFI. It was. So it took us like we went like through the entire Sing the Sorrow album. Half of like just everything we could think of that it might have been, and it turned out okay. There's a very small snippet at the end of the bridge of the song "Lost Souls" on "The Art of Drowning" that I had absolutely ripped off in this song. So when it comes out, people will hear it and they'll be like, "That sounds like AFI," and I'm acknowledging it before I even put it out. It definitely sounds like AFI. It's pretty much a carbon copy of a specific riff. I mean, overall, it doesn't sound exactly like it, but listening to it now, I can't not hear it, so that's all I hear. But anywho, so after Art of Drowning came out, then their next album was probably Art of Drowning was probably the biggest influence, but a very, very close second, and one that still is an influence to this day, is the Sing the Sorrow album. This album, which was a gift from our good friends Shauna and Michelle, which is perfect for this era because that was like the first time they came to shows. Really, was right around the time Jason joined the band. But this is like a double LP on red vinyl. It's freaking awesome. But oh my God, this album was the greatest thing ever when it came out. I love this album. This is a perfect album. I think that I'm not being a very good job of letting you guys chime in, but I'm kind of monopolizing this right now. But I know you're not.
Part of the
all right,
show.
yeah, I'm just gonna roll with it. So this is a perfect album. I think that the All Hallows EP is a perfect EP, but and the Art of Drowning is also a perfect album. After this, I kind of lost a little bit of interest. I liked I liked December Underground, not so much at first. I thought by that point they were kind of on the verge of selling out, which I think is a kind of a bullshit term. But I sort of lost touch with them. I think their popularity, because they felt like a small band at the time, even they weren't small, but you know, it's like when you feel like they're almost your buddies because you like connect so much with this like underground music, and then when it hits like MTV and becomes huge, it's sort of like a remake of a movie. Yeah, you can't relate necessarily. The Art of Drown, or I'm sorry, the Sing the Sorrow album was sort of like hearing a big budget. It was like a band that you absolutely loved who had been doing amazing things with a punk rock budget, all of a sudden have like an unlimited budget.
It's a theatrical release.
It is, yeah. This is like the big budget thing, man. This is like the Michael Bay Transformers first movie when it's like on screen and it's got the original Optimus Prime voice and it still does that transforming sound, and I was just like, oh my God, this is the greatest. But then by the second and third movie, you're like, these are the worst movies ever made.
You mean halfway through the first movie?
Well, no, the first movie I was like crying when at the end I was so emotionally invested.
I fell asleep through one of them.
Well, they really got terrible. That most recent one is probably the worst movie I've seen all year. Whenever it came out, that thing, The Last Night or whatever it is. Oh my God, it's a piece of shit. It's a terrible movie. It's so stupid. Makes no sense. But this album is fantastic, start to finish. It's just a perfect album. Butch Vig doing production on it, and Jerry Finn. But really, it's the Butch Vig production that, just because it's a huge sounding album. They started introducing synthesizers. I mean, there's like little snippets where it switches to electronic kind of sound and back. Anyways, massive, huge influence. Yes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes, good. All right. After that, though, I just did sort of lose touch. And honestly, like, it took me... now I love December Underground, but at the time, I just really didn't care for it. And everything they've done after that, even though I was, like, beyond obsessed with them over that period of their musical sort of period from Sing the Sorrow. Before that, I'm not a huge fan either. It was kind of too pop-punky for me in, like, a not really great way. And I think it was really Hunter's addition to the band that changed them. Hunter and Jade joining the band made that sound. And I don't know, that period from Sing the Sorrow to, Black Sails in the Sunset to Sing the Sorrow is just like a perfect run for a band. Before and after, not really my cup of tea. Nothing against them, but I don't really care for, All Hallows. Yeah, including All Hallows. That was in there. It goes Sing the Sorrow, All Hallows, Art of Drowning, and then I keep getting it backwards. Black Sails, All Hallows, Art of Drowning, and then Sing the Sorrow. Best run ever. So for the time period, so we're talking, I guess, like 2000-ish now, right? 2000, 2001 maybe. I guess that's when it. Yeah. So that period up until this came out, which was probably, I guess, 2002, 2000, something like that. Excellent. So also, now that I've done like sort of monopolizing, and that was not this guy's cup of tea at the time either.
Yeah. I actually find it funny because like I watch a lot of sports, and they say that if you keep your offense on the field long enough, then the other team's offense doesn't have any time. That's kind of how I feel this just went. Well, if I talk enough, Jason won't talk. We're good. It's funny, what the AFI thing cracks me up is because, do you remember the one album that came out where they were wearing, like, they all went to white and were wearing ties? Mm-hmm. Okay, do you all remember Ralph at that time? He hated that album. And then a week later, he's like, this is like the best album they've ever put out. It's so, and then like a week later, he's like, I freaking hate this album. Like, why, you guys, what is wrong with this album? Like, I can't just, it's funny watching you go through this whole, like,
love-hate thing.
Yeah.
I do that as I digest music.
I think you always do that. Not you. You always do that when it's a band that means like everything to you, whatever it is. Yeah, I came up completely differently. I had the only punk bands I knew of would be like my 7th grade year, and I saw 2 kids. One of them had an Op Ivy shirt, and the other one had a Minor Threat shirt. And so I told everyone that those were my 2 favorite bands. I still to this day have never heard a single song by either one of those bands.
Yeah.
No, maybe Op Ivy, but I don't know any of their music. I also had never heard the Misfits until probably about 98, because I didn't know who they were. I was an Oingo Boingo fan. I was a diehard Kiss fan because my older brothers always listened to them, and I actually did bring some of my wonderful. I don't have all the cool crap you have to talk about. Yeah. But all I have is my Ace Frehley.
Oh yeah.
My Peter Criss and my Paul Stanley solo albums, and the Gene Simmons one has escaped me forever. So I still don't own them, and I actually picked these up later on in life. I had them when I was a kid. Matter of fact, I think when I was a kid, the only one I had was the Gene Simmons one.
Oh.
But what were you saying about it?
Well, the Gene Simmons one is like total disco.
It's the disco of...
These albums came out in 1979 when Kiss was they were going to break up. Ace and Peter were like, we're out of the band. We want to go do our own thing. And Gene and Paul, the business minds, were like, listen, don't leave. Just do a solo album. We'll all each do solo albums. And we'll release them all simultaneously. Right. And they did. The only one that sounds like Kiss is Paul Stanley's, which is a great one. The best of the bunch is Ace's.
Ace's is fantastic.
Peter Criss is like wannabe Rod Stewart, terrible Motown, awful record. I mean, sorry, Peter Criss. No, I'm not sorry. It's fucking
He's
awful.
not tuning in.
He is. He's watching. He sent me a fan
in.
letter, man.
Did he really?
Yeah, Peter Criss said, "What's up?" No,
he's behind.
I like your. I like that you participated in that too. Peter Criss did not. That is a lie. I lied right there.
Yeah.
But the Gene Simmons one is full on disco. It's got Cher on it. There's a couple of good songs though. Radioactive. I'm radioactive.
Oh Lord. So to me, like, especially growing up in the '80s, it was pop music was so oversaturated. There were a couple bands, Missing Persons, and that my brothers got me into. Otherwise, really obscure bands like Suburban Lawns and Weird Little Things. But I never actually had a punk band. And the first punk band that I think I ever listened to wasn't even a punk band, and it was this, which is the first album that I ever purchased with my own money. I saved up my own money. My mom didn't buy it for me, and it's a band called the 3 O'Clock 16 Tambourines. It's about as mod as it comes, and mod was the closest thing I knew to punk, I guess, which is nothing like punk, but it was kind of in the same vein where, they were just different from everyone else, I guess. But my friend David Alvarado introduced me to this. We went down to the Electric Chair in Huntington Beach and bought our monkey boots, and that's what started me off in the right direction, I thought, towards punk rock. I would definitely consider myself mod, even though I don't even know what that meant. I just know that I didn't like The Who, and it was required listening, so that didn't work out for me.
But John Entwistle, awesome bass player.
Yeah. The one thing that was most influential that I thought was cool was a band called the Unforgiven. And these guys, the only thing that I loved about them was the fact that their drummer, Alan Waddington III, who is still at Citrus College as the music director there, he was my brother's drum teacher. So these guys hit big in like 86, and they were pretty much the exact same band that Bon Jovi was, and Bon Jovi hit. And once Bon Jovi hit, there wasn't room for two. You can actually go on and watch them at Farm Aid, and it's them performing with Willie Nelson and Bon Jovi for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And then essentially once Farm Aid, once Bon Jovi took off, they were done, like no one ever. But what I loved about this was the fact that on VH1, Richard Blade hosted it, and they had one specific episode that was all Oingo Boingo, like all their awesome videos, and that was like my band. And at the very end of it, they always punched in one band after, and they had the Unforgiven's video, which was awesome. So I kind of felt like I knew a rock star.
That is awesome.
Yeah, move on, Ralph.
Okay, well, since we also were discussing first albums bought, this is the first album I ever bought with my money. It is, well, I think the first 7-inch I ever got was, we were talking about the first 45s we got, because Jason and I are about the same age, so we actually had little Fisher-Price record players, I'm sure. And first one I got was the theme song to Greatest American Hero.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on.
Mine was,
so
It's Still Rock and Roll to Me by Billy Joel, and I bought it at TGNY.
I don't think I've ever bought a record.
Well, my
in
mom
my
bought it for
life.
me.
Actually, I didn't buy this. I got it for my
records?
birthday. I got it for a birthday present. My neighbor friend, this kid named David Holtz, bought it for me. Still remember. That's how important it was.
I bought Sir Mix-a-Lot's Square Dance Rap because my brothers told me about it, and I didn't know. And I'll have to see when it came out, but I was probably like 7 or 8, and my mom, we went to Tower Records, and I had remembered my brothers talking about Square Dance Rap. Not Square Dance Rap. Damn it. Yeah, Square Dance Rap. And I was like, Mom, I need to buy this.
Bars.
Well, I don't even remember it at this point. I remember Buttermilk Biscuits was the other song on there. And I didn't know it was an adult-themed album, and they didn't have the warning labels yet. So I brought it home, and I was like, check it out. So I'm like taking it, putting it on our brand new 100-watt stereo system. It was high-end, right? And my brothers had started, and my brothers are just like, no, just like run in like, what? And my mom just has no idea that she just bought me one of the most
Is it scandalous?
Yes.
Awesome. It's like,
the influence of older brothers was awesome. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, that's good, man. I just wanted to just mention how wonderful this is. Like one of the greatest albums ever created, because it was also came out the year I was born, 1975.
Huh.
Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. I got it because I had seen him on The Muppet Show and really liked him, and but he's super intriguing. But this album is fantastic, and I think The Muppet Show must have been filmed around that same time, because he did, or maybe it must have been later 70s, but he did Welcome to My Nightmare on it with this cool Muppet band of like weird ghoulish Muppets, and he looks like Dracula. I think he pops out of a coffin in the beginning. But the songs on here are fantastic, and there's an interesting segue. I'm going to bring this up. Okay, so one of the songs on, I'll save it. I'm going to save it. There's an interesting little thing that a tidbit we'll talk about. But anyway, so that's our vinyl corner for that's the fun little vinyl discussion. So that was it for this week. Oh, interestingly enough, I didn't bring it.
Participate next time.
Yes, yeah, bring vinyls and we'll discuss. So
I don't have the ones I want, but you might have them.
One of the ones that I bought this week though was the new Alice Cooper Live, which is live at the Olympia in Paris. It's he does Pain, which is a song off of Flush the Fashion, which I don't think I've heard him play live on like an old like bootleg, but I've never actually heard it performed live. And I still haven't. I heard it on this record. It's good. But oh my god, that song is awesome. And hearing it live, and it wasn't I thought it was Orianthi playing guitar when I saw him, but it was Nina Strauss. And she's really good, and she has very luscious like shampoo commercial golden hair. It's so fantastic. Just want to like run my fingers through it. It's obviously well conditioned. It's just perfect. She's so energetic and happy when she plays. It's really inspiring. But yeah, there's an important little thing on here. So stay tuned for the next episode, which will be delving into Order of the Fly history, secret history of the Order of the Fly, and how on episode 3 I left off when Jason joined the band. So now we will start from that point. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was good for a couple of laughs and a little bit of interesting weird influences on, or especially for Jason's weird. Mine aren't weird. Mine aren't totally obvious, but thank you guys, and see you in a day or two when I put the next episode up.